Hello everyone, this is going to be a teaching video in many respects, and it's going to be maybe a little bit longer because I'm going to talk to you about the vernal equinox and why is it important, and I'm going to combine it with this year's feature, one of its most important features, knowing what's happening in the world, the Vesta-Astraea conjunction. The vernal equinox is the starting point, the commencement of the solar year. And we usually look at it and not the December 31st or January 1st space-time moment in order to see what is going to happen within a year. Of course, we do look at both. Already, I always feel a bit funny whenever I'm creating a video on the 1st of January, because nothing really commences there, except that we are changing the date. So yes, admittedly, there is some kind of change, but if you look at nature, actually it's going to be cold and frozen everything. So it's nothing is really changing. But at the vernal equinox, spring is starting, and think about the word spring and the verb spring, and you will see that yes, everything is springing into life. That's what it means, and that's what the vernal equinox is suggesting or symbolizing. It's 0 degrees Aries. All 4 cardinals, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, are important because at their 0 degrees, when the sun enters their sign, at these signs, something is starting, something is commencing. The 4 seasons, of course, they are the season starting energies. Something new is coming into life, something brand new is at our disposal. But out of the 4, of course, the vernal equinox, 0 degrees Aries, is the most important of them. And this year's main astrological feature, of course, karmic astrological feature, is the Pluto-Sedna trine. But besides that, I always look at the asteroids as well, although the asteroids have an orbital period of 3 to 3.5 years. So there's nothing really special about their orbits. They are special when they combine, when they move together. And last year, it was the Astraea-Juno conjunction that was there for months, really. And I kept telling you that it's important because now you can actually change how you look at your partner. Juno, of course, is the official partner. It represents committed, important, and long-term relationships. Juno is the wife, the first lady archetype. And Vesta is the focusing principle, and Astraea is the karma breaker or the destiny changer. So these were the main protagonists, but now it used to be Astraea-Juno, and now it's going to be Vesta-Astraea. So Juno is now actually conjunct Chiron. You will see from the chart that I'm going to show you in a minute. So how do we delineate Vesta-Astraea? Actually, Vesta is the high priestess. And as there are no longer priestesses, really, we could, I mean, even 200 years ago, the whole church and the Catholic Church and also monasteries were quite important. Actually, in the Middle Ages, there were 2 institutions for the unwanted or untamable or really superfluous human beings. One was the army, of course, and the other one was the clergy. So you could go to monasteries and stay there, or you can go to war. And nowadays, there's no such things. There is no such institution. It's going to be a huge problem, believe me, because in Europe, the old Europeans are no longer wanting to have children. There are no babies, only the refugees have 4, 5, 10 kids. And those are families that are going to survive, and the rest who decided not to have any children are going to die out. And actually, no one is going to look after them in their old ages, and there's no church institution either where you could go and ask for help. So it's going to be a huge problem within 20, 30 years. But that's it. We are our own destiny's workers, so to speak. So we reap what we sowed. That's the problem. Anyhow, so Astraea, if you look up the name, it means star daughter, and she was the daughter of Zeus. And her myth indicates that she was able to stay in a situation for as long as it was necessary, for as long as it took. But then, whenever it was really unsustainable anymore, she had the strength and the will to change it, to alter it, and to go into another direction, to change the course of her own destiny. And also, it is the 5th asteroid, and up till its spotting, they thought, astronomers thought that the 4 main asteroids are really just minor planets, and actually they call them minor feminine planets. But the problem was, and also Vesta was the 4th of the main asteroids was spotted in 1804, and 42 years they didn't see any others, so they never just those 4. And then sometime in 1846, all of a sudden, Astraea was spotted, but Astraea is much smaller than the big 4. So you can't actually call it a minor planet because it's so tiny. So they had to reclassify the whole, so actually Astraea is the karma breaker of asteroids as well. And it functions as the karma breaker, as the destiny changer in karmic astrology. You might ask, what does it mean to break karma? Well, if you look at a nut, okay, or an almond, it has a very hard shell, and you need to break it up in order to get out the fruit, to be able to eat it or utilize it somehow. And this is exactly what we are doing with karma, because karma sometimes, any type of karma, it could be very, very nice and beautiful and flowing karma, actually prevents you from doing your destiny, sometimes from even starting your destiny. And it needs to be broken, just like a nut, in order to eat it out, in order to actually release it from its stuck position. And because that's what you need to do with karma. You either resolve it, or you let it go, or you break it. And Astraea helps you to break old embedded karma. And with this year's Vesta-Astraea conjunction, you are actually called upon to focus, Vesta, on karma breaking, destiny changing. And now that they are both are entering the Vernal Equinox point, Aries 0, this is where the potential becomes imminent, and also the need becomes imminent. So let's take a look at the London chart. Here it is. If you check, you will see that the exact time is on February the 8th at 4:43 London time. And you will see that Astraea is already at 0 degrees 30-ish Aries. So it actually entered Aries like 2 days ago, but now Vesta is also accompanying it. So Vesta is at 0 degrees 00 minutes and seconds Aries. So that's one conjunction. There's also an applying Mercury-Pluto conjunction. It's going to be tight and exactly in like 3 to 4 days. And you have a very, very tight Chiron-Juno conjunction. As I mentioned, there was a Juno-Astraea conjunction in November and December. So that was the potential there we could actually change the destiny or the course of our relationships. But now it's a Chiron-Juno conjunction, and it means that we have the potential to heal our relationships. But the problem is, of course, with Chiron, first it gets worse before it gets better, because Chiron suggests or describes our karmic wounds. This conjunction describes our karmic wounds regarding relationships and partnerships. And in order to heal, first we we need to face it and we need to acknowledge it, and that's always painful. So it's not an easy energy pattern. It's going to be there for another week or two. After that, Juno is going to separate from Chiron, so you have approximately 2, maybe 3 weeks before it becomes extinct and it dies out. And I would like to show you two midpoint structures as well between two celestial objects. There can be many relationships. You can establish a few types of relationships. But of course, the most important is when there is a some sort of any sort of aspect. When they have an aspect, they are definitely linked together. There's also another one, which is mutual reception. So let's say you have a Capricorn moon and a Cancer Saturn that is in mutual reception, and they don't have to be in opposition, an exact opposition. They are still going to affect each other. One is ruining the other, so they are actually in a relationship. And the third type of relationship is when you see it joined in a midpoint. See two celestial objects joined by a third one in a midpoint structure. Here you can see two important midpoint structures. Actually, we could find more, but it would be harder for me to show you. So as I said, this is a teaching video, so you can actually see a couple of the comic tools in operation, let's put it this way. And the sun is at the Saturn dark moon Lilith midpoint. Now, dark moon in karmic astrology is since it represents the second turning point of the Lilith myths, when Lilith accepts the curse of Yahweh and doesn't go back to the Garden of Eden, and it is linked to the curse. Not like cursing someone. We should please never do it. Okay, you should never curse anyone, please. It's a behavior pattern when you decide to do something. You're very determined, very adamant to do it, and you know at the same time that the people around you, your family, your friends, won't like it, and actually might even curse you for it, but you don't care. You still go ahead and do it. So that's the Lilith energy here, the dark moon Lilith. And Saturn, incidentally, kind of also is linked to curses. I once asked a colleague of mine who is doing horary, which planet is linked to curses, and she said she definitely would choose Saturn. So here the two curse energies are actually affecting the sun, and really no matter where you look at the chart, you will have this midpoint structure. And the other one is the Mars-Uranus midpoint, where you see Sedna. Sedna is creation through dissection. It simply means that there are non-working elements in your life or in anything you do, and you have to take them out and rearrange the remaining pieces in order to create something that is workable or usable or manageable. And the Mars-Uranus aspects, I always translate as free will aspects. Of course, they could mean something else. Mars is the will, Uranus is chaos, anarchy, but also freedom urges. That's why I call it the free will aspect. And especially when it's a flowing aspect, like a trine or a sextile, then you have almost unlimited free will, or this is what you feel, this is what you think. And then whenever this is challenged, then you feel certainly very, very badly about it. But you have this drive in you that, yes, I have free will, I can do whatever I want. Of course, you can't always, but most of the time you have, since you have this feeling that you believe in it, of course, you can actually manage it. But also, for instance, in Magi astrology, Mars-Uranus is an extra sexual aspect, for instance. They consider Mars-Venus, Mars-Pluto, and Venus-Pluto the three main sexual aspect potentials, but they say that there's a fourth, Mars-Uranus, which is a masculine sexual aspect. And I also add that Mars-Uranus is also about movement, about speed, about how fast you are driving, how fast you are doing things, and the non-flowing aspects of squares, oppositions, semi-squares, sesquiquadrates, even quincunxes sometimes work as accident aspects. So it has many connotations, really, but as a midpoint structure, just a note here, I always interpret midpoint structures with the very, very best of those planetary potentials. I know that Reinhold Ebertin, who wrote the combination of stellar influences, which is the definitive work on midpoints, he had very, very pessimistic, very negative delineations. So I decided to give you positive delineations. That's why life is difficult as it is. Why should we actually fall into, fall into negativity? So here, this is a picture, a photo I took from my own balcony the other day. And it simply reminded me of this vernal equinox energy, how the sun was coming up and bursting. Actually, this was right before, right after sun rise, but as you can see, the clouds were shadowing the sun, but it was still shining out of it. It's a beautiful picture, and I just loved it. And it has this burst of energy, cardinal fire, that we are associating with the vernal equinox. So what is happening at the vernal equinox, if we think about it from a karmic astrological viewpoint? Well, whenever the soul, which is the human soul is a multidimensional entity. And it is its true home is the higher dimensions, where everything is one. Think of quantum mechanics, and they will explain to you that time and matter are illusions. Really, up there, nothing else is, just is. Everything exists. Everything just is. There's no time, no matter, no width, no breadth, nothing. It's just the existence. Hard to explain, but I'm almost sure you will understand. But then, so we are one. Everything is one, and everything is just is and be. And then out of this oneness, someone, the human soul, which is part of this oneness, or as Julie Hall, my master, used to say, the eternal soul pool, something to use this expression, a soul decides to incarnate. And in order to incarnate in a separate physical body on the third dimension, or into the third dimension, you need two things. You need the will and you need the desire, which are both represented by Aries and its ruler Mars. And that's cardinal fire. So that's the vernal equinox. Okay. Let's take a look at what we have here. There's a dissociate complex planetary picture, because the midheaven and IC are at 0 degrees Scorpio Taurus, but Pluto and Sedna are at the last degrees of, 29 degrees Capricorn and Taurus. So actually, you can see that there is a dissociate T-square, midheaven, IC, and Pluto. There's also a dissociate harmony triangle, as Pluto and Saturn are still in Earth signs, while Vesta and Astraea already moved into Aries. So actually, you have here a sextile which between Pluto and Vesta-Astraea, which is actually a square energy. So there's much more tension in this sextile. And there's also dissociate Yod, which is not closing into a boomerang, simply because the degrees are too much. Vesta-Astraea is still kind of closing. It's 30 degrees to the IC, although this is actually, and it's even, the energy is even okay, but the Vesta-Sedna is only 27 degrees, so it's not closing there. But the Yod is still there, but it's dissociate, so everything is dissociate. And by definition, if in karmic astrology, you see dissociate aspects and aspect configurations, it it usually suggests that something is not right, something is not, or something is out of the ordinary. The energy is not there. The effort is there. The effort is what the aspect itself is describing, and the energy is the sign. And so the energy is not there. The effort is there, but it's somehow not working as we wish it to work. It happens with people as well. And here are the transcendental objects too, that this thing is accompanied by. On the midheaven, you have Scythia, where the actual astrology was invented. And then Nefertiti, who was a queen, who was the wife of Tutankhamen. So she's an Egyptian queen. And Haumea, which actually just moved into Scorpio. So again, this is a TNO that has just changed signs. Again, 300 years old, so it has an orbital period of 300 years. And Haumea is a Hawaiian goddess, a creation goddess who is constantly rejuvenating herself in order to deliver even more and more and more children. And then she makes herself even younger, and then makes children with her own sons and grandsons. So it's incest, of course, but also, and yes, it is linked to incest if it's a karmic wound, but at the same time, it's the rejuvenation of creativity in a positive sign. So that's on the midheaven. And on the IC, you have Mirach, Beta Andromeda, and Mirach is a beautiful star linked to the freed Andromeda. Feminine happiness and joy is linked to Mirach. On Pluto, you have still Orius and Amicus. I told you that Orius is going to be there. And Orius is, of course, the mitigated punishment. And Amicus is the profound mixing up with the sacred. I spoke to you about these two archetypes many, many times. I'm not going to elaborate them any further. But you also have Hephaestus, who is a figure, a mythological figure, first of all, linked to Taurus, who would love to create something beautiful and would love to be perfect, but it can't be perfect because on the human level, nothing is perfect. And of course, Hephaestus is the lame blacksmith of the gods. Hera's or Juno's a son that she creates on her own, but because he is created as a result of jealousy, vindictiveness, and anger, he becomes very ugly. And so he's the manifestations of Hera's anger and jealousy, and those are the connotations we link to Hephaestus. And on Vesta-Astraea, you have a number of things. You have Shiva, Hermes, and Hannibal, and Themis. Shiva, of course, is the Trimurti's last, third version, the destroyer. Hermes is Mercury in Greek times, and it's yes, he's a form of Mercury, but also he is the god of magic and alchemy as well. And then Hannibal, who was the one of the generals who was able to cross the Alps. Themis, who was the creator of law. And then Manve is one of the TNOs, the long orbital TNOs, and of course Seat, I talked to you about. It's one of the places where for suicide victims, the healing place of suicide victims. This is the main healing place for fresh suicide victims. This is at Pisces, 29 degrees, 40 something. So at 0 degrees, Vesta is still very much there. And on Sedna, you have the Pleiades still. The Pleiades will be there this year and even next year, all year long. This is the home of the creator goddess. And Moira, who are the goddesses of fate. So the three goddesses of fate, the Moira. Okay, and then there's a very curious little planetary picture, because There are things at 0 degrees, of course, Vesta and Astraea, and a number of things are at around 15 or almost 15 degrees. And of course, between 0 and 15 degrees, you have 15 degrees. And there are two main, or almost not actually main aspects, but established aspects, the semi-square and the sesquiquadrate, where we utilize the 15 degrees. The semi-square is half the square, 45 degrees, and you also have the 15 there, and with the sesquiquadrate as well. And there's a karmic aspect, the quindecilla, which is 165 degrees. And if you absolutely want to break it down, then it's a quincunx plus 15 degrees. So these can be utilized with the rest of the main aspects. And here we have this is what we have. There's a mutable T-square between the Moon-Venus opposition and Mars. And Moon-Venus is important to understand that in general, by definition, and in general, the feminine was cut into two. In order to get rid of the goddess, the creator goddess, they needed to dissect the feminine. They took the reproductive functions out and put it into the moon, the mother, and they took the joy-creating aspects of the goddess and gave it to Venus, the Hetaera, or the Geisha, or the ancient occupation of women. Anyhow, so it was hermetically cut into two and separated. That is why men married someone in sacred matrimony in order to have children and start a family and have heirs, but then went into tea houses, let's be nice and decent, to meet geishas and to have pleasure. So pleasure and reproduction were totally separated. And this is what the Moon-Venus opposition represents. And actually, if you have this aspect, it is very, very difficult for you to somehow combine the two functions of the feminine. And if it's in a man's chart, that is also a difficult one, because either his lover and his mother are clashing, or what he thinks of who should be the mother of his children and who should be his lover are also clashing. So it's very difficult to reconcile the two. And then, of course, with the Mars, it gets complicated, because Mars Moon is always hysterics, okay? And Mars Venus is the clashing of the feminine and the masculine. So it's a difficult, although it's a mutable T-square, but still quite difficult. There's also a dissolved opposition, luckily, I should say, because Uranus is actually dissolving the Venus Moon opposition. Unfortunately, it is not closing here between Mars and Uranus, because Mars is not yet at 15 degrees, it's 12 something. But it's going to move there. So they are going to, eventually there's going to be a semi-sextile between the two. There's also a little engine. Engines, by definition, engines are funny creations because they combine three distinctly different aspects, members of aspect families. The regular main engine is made up of a square, a trine, and a quincunx, and it has the blessing of the trine, the drive of the square, and the karmic situation described by the quincunx. And so, you utilize the energy that is created by this aspect. Little engine is made up, instead of a trine, there is a sextile, but the square and the quincunx are there. It's less potent because the blessing of the harmony and blessing of the trine is not there, but the sextile brings you potentials. And there's also a quindecilla engine, which utilizes this 15-degree thing, because there's a quindecilla 165 degrees. This is between the moon and Vesta-Astraea at the moment. Here's the quindecilla. And the 45-degree between Uranus and, again, the Vesta-Astraea conjunction, and of course the trine between the moon and Uranus. That's the quindecilla engine. So there's a lot of drive in this configuration. And here are the transcendental objects. I did not enumerate the Vesta-Astraea ones because I didn't have the space here. But again, if you go back, you can find there's quite a few of them. Let me see where it is. Here you have the the things on the drawings. And again, and actually I put it here, so you can find the description here as well. I just didn't put it on the drawing. And again, just to remind you, this is something that I haven't told you only like maybe 2-3 months ago, but these celestial objects, the transcendental celestial objects, are color coded. Purple is for asteroids. Asteroids describe your personal karmic levels. What did you do, with whom, why, where, things like that. And the blue ones are either centaurs or TNOs, SDOs, ETNOs, so anything that is trans-Neptunian, and so the Kuiper belt objects. And they describe our karmic wounds and what happened to those karmic wounds, whether they turned into phobias or they turned into special traits. And fixed stars are the stars which are not in the solar system. They live outside the solar system. They are in the universe, elsewhere and everywhere in the universe. These bright shining worlds represent higher dimensional worlds where the soul can also incarnate in order to do stuff they want to either heal or to learn something new for a special incarnation here on the earth plane. So those are color coded. So stars are red, TNOs and centaurs are blue, and asteroids are purplish or magenta. And on the moon, you have Geisha. Here's the Geisha, interestingly, on the moon. So it's opposite Venus, which is the Geisha by definition. And Sisyphus, hard and futile work. That's on the moon. You have Aphidas, Orcus, and Theros, 3 centaurs. Aphidas is a rapist. Orcus is one of the lords of the underworld. It's the Etruscan lord of the underworld, who is, besides being an underworld lord, he is the punisher of broken oaths and also the keeper of hidden treasures. And Theros, who is hunting for bears, but he's not killing them. Instead, he's taking them into his cave in order to tame them. And it's the ability or disability to tame your subconscious, or to tame your animal instincts. And then Alcor Mizar, which is a double star in the Big Dipper, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Actually, I think I can show it to you now because it's more interesting. So here's Alcor Mizar in Ursa Major, or the Big Dipper. And according to myth, for instance, there's a Hungarian myth, because we call the Big Dipper Göncz Szekér. Szekér means chart. And according to the myth, there was this great Taltos, which is similar to shaman, but more than that. He's a priest and a healer together, and even more than that. They are very, very interesting figures of Hungarian lore. Anyhow, Göncz, who was a huge, important Taltos, once broke his chart, and he was not able to have it repaired. So in futility and anger, he put it in the sky, and ever since he's trying to find someone who would repair it. And this represents the breaking of time, something that is broken and cannot be repaired. And we are at such times, unfortunately, and the powers that be are trying to break our life totally into pieces. So yes, it is prominent on the moon, which represents our soul. And also, don't forget, the moon is highlighting everything, so we should understand what's happening. On Venus, you have Heracles, the hero, and Nestus, again, another rapist, and Ahernar, which is a beautiful star, Alpha Eridanus, symbolizing our strife and effort, and the gift at the end of the journey, how we strive in order to achieve something, and in the end we do. And this is the brightest, most beautiful star of the constellation Eridanus. On Mars, you have Tabit, which is P Orion. I don't know whether I have that. Yes, I do. Tabit is right here. The whole constellation of Orion is quite bright, and you can actually see it now. I am not sure how visible it is from London, but if you live more to southern places like, I don't know, south of Berlin, let's say, or London, you will be able to see Orion. I don't know how you pronounce it, unfortunately, but anyhow, this star is in the fur of the celestial lion that Orion, or actually who actually broke his, you know, it's the Hercules story, really. It's in Orion, you have the Hercules myth accompanied how he was able to use the fur of the lion and make it turn it as a weapon. But anyhow, so that's the lion energy there. On Uranus, here you have Uranus. You have Pan, which means everything, but also total fear, complete fear, fright. Almach and Mankar, which have been there and will be there with Uranus for quite a while, so I'm not going to delineate it again. I told you a couple of times already. On Chiron Juno, you have Cybele, who is a very strong goddess, a form of the war and love goddess, a version of it. And Alderamin, again, I spoke to you about this because it has been there with Chiron for a while, Alpha Cepheus. And on Vesta-Astraea, you still have Sheat. Again, this is something that I already told you. So that's actually it. These are, I think, yes, I told you all the transcendental celestial objects. So this is a space-time moment. And as I said, it is important for us simply because the vernal equinox point, the 0 point of Aries, is always very prominent. It will be echoed by the vernal equinox when the sun moves into Aries 0 degrees on the 20th of March. And since the Vesta-Astraea conjunction is a prominent conjunction for this particular time, and also when you look around, you realize that, yes, we need to focus on karma breaking and destiny changing. This is what the times require from us. And as Vesta is moving into the Aries point, into Aries 0 degrees, the time is now, and we need to act, and we need to find new ways in order to survive. That's what you are going to see in the upcoming months, and this is what you need to do on your personal level. Good luck and good strength, and have strength in it. This is what I wish you. Thank you for listening. Bye.